It was a Wednesday night, and my dad just got home from a long day of work, and he tells me, son, um, I work with a gentleman named Brent, and he's from Michigan. I said, Dad, I know that. I know Brent. We're boys, right? And Brent says, uh, hey, Bryce's dad, I have tickets to Michigan games because I'm a huge Michigan fan. I am about 3.5 hours away from Ann Arbor. Okay, just so you know. So it's quite the trek to get to Michigan, Ann Arbor rather, the stadium, the big house. But Brent does it regularly because he is a diehard fan, and it turns out he has four season tickets, one for him, one for his wife, and two for other people that could not make it this day. So Brent goes, "Hey, Brian, Bryce's dad, do you and Bryce want to go to the Michigan Minnesota game?" And we're like, "Of course we do. Because why wouldn't we? That's an absolutely great idea that we would do every single time it's presented." And I'm like, "Okay, when's the game?" So dad's like, it's Saturday, 2 days from now. I don't know, maybe two or three. I don't know what day I said. But I'm like, fuck yeah, Dad, I would love that game actually. Matter of fact, let's do it. Let's plan it right now. I'm canceling everything. Right? 2017, November 2nd. The plan was made. We would be driving to the big house for the first night game ever at Michigan Stadium. Right? First game ever. Can you imagine 107,000 people in Ann Arbor at night? Because prior to this day, you could not imagine it because it did not happen. But it happened this time. And of course, it was the Gophers versus the Wolverines, okay? This was pre Tanner Morgan. This was pre Rashad Bateman, pre Muhammad Ibrahim. This was pre PJ Fleck. This was an awful Gopher team. This was a truly atrocious Gopher team with just Tyler Johnson to their name and no other talent on the entire team. Okay? A very, 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 very bad team. But I was anyways. I was in, right? So so we take off, right? We take off. And as we're driving, we pass the border of Indiana to Michigan. Uh, Actually, enjoy these photos while I talk about Gene Dawson, right? Anyways, as we pass the border, I see a couple clouds of rain actually, and I'm like, oh no, this is not good. Is it supposed to rain at the big house during the first night game ever versus the Gophers? Dad's like, no, it's fine. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take a nap and I'm gonna wake up and it's all gonna be gone. All of it, it's gonna be gone. So I go to bed and we're driving. We're about an hour and a half in, and I wake up to a. And I'm like, oh my god, what is that? It was indeed rain, and lots of it. The pitter patter of rain on the window made me wake from my slumber. And I said, Dad, it's pouring. He goes, I know, I know. The wipers were like this. They were going crazy, doing their hardest to keep us safe in the rain. But Dad, he kept driving. Our tires, likely hydroplaning, but it's perfectly fine because we were going to get there to the big house and it was all going to be alright. So as we keep driving, there's patches of rain, patches of no rain, but as we get closer to Ann Arbor, it is a torrential downpour, if you will. And to make matters worse, there was no parking anywhere near the big house because it's the first night game ever. This is a big game at the big house. It was a very big house for a very big game, right? So me and Dad get there. He calls Brent. He says, Brent, we're fucked. And I'm like, I know. I know, Dad, we are, but keep talking to Brent. And Brent goes, hey, we got ponchos. But we're like a mile away because we parked like with like by our seats. So Dad and I, we park in a house, right? This house was like offering parking like $20 away. It was like a mile away, right? So we park. I have my Nikes on. My Nikes are going, bro. My shoes was talking, bro. It was bad. My shoes were squeaking, talking. It was bad shit, right? I'm walking. I'm squeaking. I'm hurting. I'm cold. I'm I'm wet. I don't have a poncho. But finally, we walk and we meet Brent about halfway. We probably walked like a half mile from the house to the big house. It was a smaller house to the big house. And Brent gives me a poncho, and I'm like, I'm good now, right? And it's about 7 probably at this point, and the game is at 8:30, right? Um, so we have an hour and a half to kill. So we go in. I think it's called like the Legends Lounge. I don't fucking know what it's called, but we go inside. No, it was actually Chrysler Arena. I don't know. It was like the basketball arena, right? Because they were like, "Hey, you can come in here because it's raining." So what, like we were in there, and dog, I was all kinds of musty. Like I smelled like rain, I smelled like sweat, but more importantly, I smelled like sadness. We had an hour and a half to endure before we went and watched Minnesota get their ass beat, right? But I was like, you know what, morale is still fine because I've seen like 4 Gopher fans at this point, you know, and I'm like, my people, you know, they came here just like us. It's gonna be okay. Strength in numbers, you know what I'm saying? So time passes and eventually we need to go to the gate to get our tickets, to scan our tickets in and go to the big house. And we go to the gate, and Dad's like, "Hey, I got the tickets on my phone." And they're like, "Okay, well, show us it." Meanwhile, it is still raining, right? Like, what do you call them? Like eavesdrops. Like the eavesdrops like on the basketball stadium were like so hard that there was like a puddle that was like splashing, and like when it like hit the ground, it was like going out like multiple feet because it was just like it was a lot of water, right? So I'm still in this poncho, just absolutely soaked, and Dad's like, "Hey, I got the tickets," and he goes, "Oh wait, do I have the tickets?" And I'm like, "Dad, I'm gonna commit murder if you don't have them." He goes, "Wait a second." So Brent and his wife get in, right, and they're waiting for us, and Dad's like, "SeatGeek, oh fuck, I just called the SOS. Damn, that's crazy. Anyways, he's like, "SeatGeek, what's happening here?" And SeatGeek isn't working because the tickets are not scanning, and I believe it was because the phone was too wet. But Dad didn't think of that. He was just like mad. He was like, he was just fucking mad for some reason, and I was like, damn, that's bogus. But eventually, after about 5 minutes of bad words to my, what would it be, 13-year-old ears, 14, I don't fucking know. I was like a 8th grader, I think. We got in eventually, right? So don't worry, we got in, and we're like, well, this is great. We'll have seats by Brent, you know. It's all great. It'll all be fine. And Minnesota is going to come in here and play their heart out. And we walk into the stadium. It's still pouring, right? I text my boy. Bro, my neighbor looks like Ben Askren, no cap. He looks like Ben Askren, like post UFC pre-boxing. Anyways, it's kind of funny. But my boy, I'm like, "Hey, yo, where you guys at?" Homeboy is on like the top row. Like, man is like 500 feet above sea level on the big house. Like, he is so high up. I called him. I'm like, "Hey, bro, where you guys at?" And like, I'm looking for him. I see him, but he's like way up there, and I'm like in the middle. That was not important. But before the game, while it's raining, the voice of Darth Vader started playing. I don't know. I think it was Darth Vader. But anyways, he was like, Dad goes, "Hey, this guy went to Michigan." I was like, "That's crazy, cool." And the game starts, and pretty quickly Michigan scores, but then pretty quickly Minnesota scores as well. And it was actually it was Rodney Smith who now plays for the Panthers. I believe he got a couple carries a couple years ago. But I was like, "Yo, Rodney, it's 7-7," and it was 7-7 going into. Oh no, it wasn't, because Corinne Rigdon had a 77-yard touchdown. Yeah. Had a 77-yard touchdown to end the first quarter. Not to be confused with jazz hip hop legend Kareem Riggins from Detroit as well, from Michigan. But I digress. So going into the second quarter, it was 7-13, and then Chris Evans rips off a 60-yard touchdown about halfway through the second quarter, and I'm like, oh no, this is not looking good now, is it? This is not looking good. Meanwhile, it is still pouring. Every time Minnesota does like a play that gained yards, I'm like, woo! Every time we get a first down, I'm like, Minneso. Dude, I'm going crazy because we didn't have anything to cheer for, you know? Our team was awful. We had Dimitri Croft, the quarterback. He threw for 74 yards in the game that we lost by 23. He was really bad. We had a Rodney Smith as our running back. The, like, I believe, fifth-year senior. I don't know. He played like 6 years or something. Oh, it was crazy. Anyways, he's not very good. Our team isn't good, right? So I'm just having fun out here, you know. And then once again, Kareem Riggins has another touchdown to make it 7-27. About 3 minutes left in the third quarter, right? At this point, Dad's like, "Hey, we should probably beat the traffic." I'm like, "Damn, you're kind of right." And Brent's like, "You know what? Fuck it, I'm leaving too. This game ass, and it's cold. It's ass. This shit booty, right? This Minnesota cannot score any points, right?" So we walk out of the stadium when this happens, right? As soon as it happens, we get up and leave, and I believe a timeout is called, okay? And as the timeout is called, we exit the stadium, and then we're like listening because like Big House is really big, like the speaker is very very profound, you know. That didn't make any sense. It's a big ass speaker, and you can hear like play by play from like a mile away. So we're walking, still listening to the play by play, and the stadium is like pretty quiet because what's there to cheer about? There's like no Minnesota fans there, and Minnesota's awful. So it's just like woo woo. You're hearing boo boo. You're hearing that, right? You're hearing all that shit, and then I believe we hear Dimitri Croft pass incomplete. Dimitri Croft pass incomplete. Rodney Smith rush for 1 yard. Dimitri Croft pass incomplete. Turnover on downs, and that's what happened, right? So we heard a very quick 3-4 and out for the Gophers, and then we're about 1/4 of the way to our car, right? We are walking when we hear the Big House erupt, right? We hear and I'm like, "Oh my god, Dad, what did we miss? Did we miss something from the Gophers?" No, we couldn't, because they wouldn't be cheering, right? I'm like, "Oh my god, what happened?" And then we hear Chris Evans, 67-yard touchdown for your Wolverines. And I'm like, "Oh my god, Dad, Chris Evans just ran us into the ground." And that would be my last memory of any Michigan game ever, and likely the last memory of any game at the Big House ever. Now you're asking, why do I tell that story? Well, first of all, the Big House was very packed this day. As you can see, the attendance exceeded the capacity, which doesn't make very much sense to me. Anyways, why do I tell you this? Well, as I was talking to Dad about Chris Evans here, I said, "Dad, I just know that I know deep down that Chris Evans is special. I do." And in fact, I looked at him and I was like, "Dad, Chris Evans is pretty fast." I'm like, "Dad, Chris Evans is gonna run a 4.52 at his pro day, but it's gonna be adjusted to a 4.57, which is still pretty fast for a running back. You know?" I looked at him, I was like, "Dad, he's gonna run unadjusted 4.57 at the pro day." And I was like, "Dad, it's gonna happen." And at that point, he's gonna get drafted in the 6th round to the Bengals to back up Joe Mixon. And he was like, "Bryce, that was genius." And years later, that came to fruition. And I have zero interest in Chris Evans because of it. Don't draft him.